Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the September 13th, 2022 meeting. Would you all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, come on, Chair.
Okay, first thing we have on our agenda are minutes. Gentlemen, do you have any additions or corrections?
I don't.
No.
Okay.
I move to approve the minutes of the Board of County Commissioners for Montezuma County for Tuesday, September 6, 2022, as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the proceedings of the Board of Commissioners, Montezuma County, September 6, 2022. Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next up is planning. We're looking at a proposed single lot subdivision. Kim, would you call the roll, please?
So I'd like to introduce you
I'm
to
sorry.
Melinda Fuller. She's our new chief deputy, and she's going to read to you.
Okay.
Sorry, Melinda.
That's okay. So we have Commissioner Candelaria,
Here.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Here.
and Commissioner Copenhaver,
Here.
Attorney McLaren,
Here.
Administrator Anderson,
Here.
and Melinda Fuller, here.
And just read it.
Notice is hereby given that the Montezuma County Board of County Commissioners will hold a public hearing for review and determination of a proposed single-lot development and AR 3-9 rezoning application submitted by Huston Connie Anderson, agent, Upper Road 42 Water Association, on property located at 13750 Road 42, Mancos, Colorado, consisting of 63.11 acres, more or less, located north of Highway 160, east of Road 42, situated in Section 2, Township 36 North, Range 13 West, N.M.P.M. The hearing will be held Tuesday, September 13th, 2022 at 9 a.m. in the Commissioner's Hearing Room, Montezuma County Administrative Offices, 109 West Main, Cortez, Colorado. Interested persons may attend and give input. Information may be obtained from the Planning Office online services at https://co/montezuma-co.smart.gov-community.com/public/home. You may also contact the Planning Department at 970-565-2801 with questions. Dated this 24th day of August 2022. Kim Purcell, Clerk, Board of County Commissioners, Montezuma County, Colorado. Published in the Journal on Wednesday, August 31st, 2022.
Okay, thank you, Melinda. All right, Don, you want to give us an overview?
Okay.
If you want to bring her up, you're more than welcome to. Okay.
As long as we can hear Elsa sing.
Yeah.
So the Upper Road 42 Water Association is the agent for the owners, the Andersons. They are forming their water district in order to supply water from the Mancos Rural Water Plant to 20 some odd residents up there. And the Andersons are looking to create a 1 acre lot, single lot development. The variance was previously approved by the BOCC, and that is for the water tower structure and associated pipelines in and out. The water company will pump the water to the water tank, and then it's all gravity fed from there down to all the residents of the proposed water district. So they're just proposing a single lot development off of that property, and that would be the Andersons' in-kind contribution to the project, and as their part of payment on the water district.
Okay. Would you like to add anything?
You did a great job. I don't really need to add anything. He covered it all,
Okay,
unless you have questions.
all right. Commissioners, questions?
No questions.
Okay. Well, then, I will open this up for a public comment. Anybody wishing to speak for or against this application, please come forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you may address the board. Seeing no public comment, I'll close the public comment session of this, and I'll bring it back to the commissioners.
I have nothing further.
Okay?
No, I think it's perfectly fine. We need to, it'll be good for those residents up there to have rural water and not have to be hauling from the water dock, and
Yeah.
it'll be a good project. I think we should do these. I move to approve this proposed single lot development and AR 3-9 rezoning application submitted by Huston and Connie Anderson, agent for the Upper Road 42 Water Association, on property located at 13750 Road 42, Mancos, Colorado.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept a proposed single lot development and AR 3-9 rezoning application submitted by Huston and Connie Anderson, agent for the Upper Road 42 Water Users Association, on property located at 13750 Road 42, Mancos, Colorado. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I will close this public hearing. There you go, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have to read this also. There's one right there.
Okay, and we have another one, but we have to wait 3 minutes on my
Right.
clock.
I'll go ahead and, James is out this week, and just needed to double check with you. I believe he sent you the two, prospective consultants for the IHOP grant, and didn't know if you had enough information. James and I both sat in on and discussed with one of the companies. James had the same discussion with the other company, so I don't know if interviews are really necessary or required. They're basically very similar proposals, so I think James gave you our recommendation, but just needed to double check if you had enough information, if you were fine to move forward with the decision in the future, or if we really needed to allot the time for interviews.
I think the biggest thing that we didn't have last week is we didn't have any of the proposals on the screen or anything that we could display. So
Right.
if you want to pull those up, Travis, to answer your question from me individually, I read them both, the Ayers and the Capelli, or I'm not sure how you say that, but Capelli. And they really are pretty much neck and neck, depending on what you guys did as far as your scoring. I did look at your score sheets, and I think his recommendation was Ayers. I think the biggest thing is that we had them so that we did have them in the record, and there was enough information
Right.
for us to see before we made a decision on it. So I'm fine with the recommendation, so gentlemen, I'll let you.
No, I'm fine. I looked at the comparisons and I agree.
Okay, yeah, I just needed to know if we had to schedule interviews, we'd need to get on it right away, but I concur with you. I don't know that would lead to any more information or input that would help us.
Correct. I think it was just more in transparency that, Ian, always recommends to us if we haven't seen anything as far as the actual documentation that was sent in, then we're not gonna make a decision on it based until we've actually seen it. So,
Correct.
we will need
A motion.
okay. Gentlemen, any further discussion on them, or are you ready to move forward as Mr. Haley is asking?
I move we approve the recommendation from planning and from James for the heirs proposal for the IHOP grant.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the proposal from the Heirs Corporation in consideration to the IHOP grant for Montezuma County. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, there you go. You can take that to James, and
Great,
that way we can
Thank
get them
you.
going on that.
appreciate that.
Okay, my clock just flashed 9:10, so we are on time, and we do have another public hearing. So Melinda, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Candelaria,
Here.
Commissioner Lindsay,
Here.
Commissioner Copenhaver,
Here.
Administrator Anderson,
Here.
Attorney McLaren,
Here.
and Melinda Fuller. Read it. Notice is hereby given that the Montezuma County Board of County Commissioners will hold a public hearing for review and determination of a proposed single-lot development and AR 3-9 rezoning application submitted by Huston and Connie Anderson, agent, whoops, that's the wrong one.
This would be Mark Cox.
Notice is hereby given that the Montezuma County Board of County Commissioners will hold a public hearing for review and determination of a proposed 19-lot major subdivision and AR 3-9 rezoning application submitted by Mark Cox, agent Andy Cox, on property located at to be determined Road 25, Dolores, Colorado, consisting of 59.27 acres, more or less, located south of Highway 184 and Road 25, situated in Section 7, Township 37 North, Range 15 West, N.M.P.M. The hearing will be held Tuesday, September 13th, 2022 at 9:10 a.m. in the Commissioners' Hearing Room. Montezuma County Administrative Offices, 109 West Main Street, Cortez, Colorado. Interested persons may attend and give input. Information may be obtained from the Planning Office online services at https://co-montezuma-co.smartgovcommunity.com/public/home. You may also contact the Planning Department at 970-565-2801 with questions. Dated this 23rd day of August 2022. Kim Purcell, Board of County Commissioners, Montezuma County, Colorado. Published in the Journal on Wednesday, August 31st, 2022.
Okay, thank you, Melinda. All right. Don, do we have the applicant here?
Yeah, I don't see our applicant here.
Okay.
Which one do you want up first?
If you would bring up the full plat.
Do we have anybody on Zoom at
No.
all?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
The other one, please, Travis. So the Coxes are proposing a 19-lot major subdivision south of Road 25 as it heads east and west to 184. They are all basically 3-acre lots, and they are proposing to do this in 2 phases. Phase 1 would be 9 lots, and it would include the full access road, the full loop, and then Phase 2 would be the remainder. The other map shows Phase 1. Planning and Zoning was unanimous to recommend it. The motion contained the condition that Tri-State's easement language be included in the covenants, which basically it's a 100-foot wide easement, but they've also got some conditions of no fences, no structures, just basically nothing built on that easement. You can cross it with a road. The other discussion from P&Z, I'll read it here. Because this did not get included in the motion specifically, but it was part of the P&Z discussion, was that due to the size of the lots, P&Z recommends the applicant strongly consider placing the restriction there be 1 single-family residence per lot only, and it should be stated in the covenants. That was not specifically included in the motion, just the tri-state language included in the covenants was. But that was the P&Z discussion and recommendation. Due to the location and the size of the lots, particularly those lots that are encumbranced with the tri-state easement. There's also 3 major transmission lines, natural gas that runs through the property, and those are depicted there as well. But I don't know.
Is that part of that utility corridor? Okay.
Yeah.
So was that on all 19 lots, or was it just on the lots like 1, 5?
That was
4,
on all
6.
19 lots. What you're looking at there is phase 1, 9 lots.
So I have a question, and this is probably more directed to the attorney. Because in our land use code, we can have an ADU, right? So you can actually have 2 homes per.
Correct.
Per lot. So here's the question to the attorney. When the subdivision covenants are not maintained and annual meetings are not held and records are not kept, the covenants become basically null and void because there's no way to enforce them within the property owners of the subdivision. So even though if that condition is placed on there and the covenants are not maintained, would then it go back to the land use code to where you can actually have a
No.
auxiliary dwelling, or how
No,
does that work?
if covenants are placed on properties, those covenants remain with the properties. Now, if they're not enforced by landowners in that subdivision, then they're not enforced, but the covenants remain. And if those covenants are violated, somebody can bring a civil action against the individual and say the covenants are not being followed. We can certainly approve this conditional on that covenant being placed on these property, on the subdivision. Now, whether individuals in that subdivision choose to enforce those covenants is going to be up to them, but those covenants remain.
And planning does review covenants during all our discussions with people wanting to develop their lots. We don't enforce them, but we do abide by them. The setback requirements, the land use code supersedes the subdivision setbacks, but we do inform people of what the covenants say as far as accessory dwellings.
I think the key thing you guys have to look at during today's public hearing is, you have to look at, in terms of this subdivision, is it going to diminish surrounding property values? And is the zoning going to be consistent with the code? If making these covenants are part of that calculus, then you can do that. Certainly a 19-lot major subdivision in an area like this, if you put a covenant that there's going to be one family dwelling on each lot, that may impact how this subdivision affects surrounding properties, if that makes sense. If you've got 19 lots and you've got 2 houses on each, for instance, that may be a different calculus and reviewing how it's going to impact surrounding properties than, say, 19 lots with 1 house on each. Does that make sense?
But an ADU, this is right off of 184, so it's right next to the subdivisions to the, I guess, basically to the south, the go to Road T,
But,
right?
yeah, there's several subdivisions around this. This is another instance where Cdot was notified. Cdot was contacted. I specifically emailed, and I forget her name.
Randy?
Her all the time, but who's the regional director? Julie Constant. I did contact Julie, and she did finally get back to the applicants, but the only thing she said is you'll need to apply for an access permit. So we have no idea from Cdot what their take is on it. It's just their standard default now is everybody just apply for an access permit and you get no input, no advice, no idea of what they will or won't require, how it's gonna affect entrance on that highway. We can't give any input there. So I don't know if 19 residences is any different than 38 residences on a traffic count, because CDOT's given us nothing. And this is, we're going on 3 months.
Has the applicant applied for a CDOT access permit?
Yes, they have.
And so they're just waiting to hear from CDOT?
Correct.
And CDOT, which is the common response that we've been getting in the last probably 6 months, is that they are understaffed, they don't have anybody there, and it's taking 45 days just to get a response once it's been submitted, minimum. And that's just to get a response of saying, hey,
Anything.
we've received the application. So,
My concern with this is that CDOT has asked this applicant to apply for an access permit. Our land use code does contain the provision that access has to be either checked off by the county or CDOT. And lately, we've made a habit of requiring folks to get an access permit from CDOT. It's unfortunate that this takes so long, and it really tends to stymie development here in the county, which is a concern. That being said, certainly an option for you guys in thinking about this is to either continue this public hearing to a date in hopes that CDOT gets back to this applicant and says yay or nay on an access permit, or you could also approve this but make it contingent on that access permit being obtained.
So, yeah, I would feel better off about having the actual response from CDOT. I think it would be better. And I won't do a TBD, I will make a set date.
I can't
And
give you advice on a set date.
I understand that, nobody can, so we'll set a date. If it doesn't come in and they haven't responded, then we'll have to carry it out again.
Fair enough.
So, do you think, gentlemen, what's your pleasure here? Do you,
I think we should move forward with this thing and contingent upon that,
okay?
them getting that permit before they do the subdivision. Why postpone this public hearing to another time when we can do this contingent upon them getting that permit before they can proceed with the subdivision? Is that?
Yeah, you can do it either way.
I mean, to me, I think we should proceed and not, if we wait for CDOT, we may have other commissioners here before we get an approval out of them, so let's not, I mean, I hate postponing things. It's just
Commissioner
ridiculous.
Lindsey?
I agree. Let's
Okay,
proceed.
all right. Well, then we can proceed. So,
Public comment.
any other questions for us,
No.
Commissioner Copeland?
Do you have any idea of when their proposal is to develop the other phase 2, or is that contingent upon how?
It kind of depends on how and what CDOT says on that access permit, and then it would have to be within the 3 years of vested rights from the date of approval, but they would like to move forward sooner rather than later, but it just depends on how quick phase 1 moves and sells.
So, which is a great question, because here's the question that I'm going to ask now. If CDOT denies them the access, and this has to then change from a 19 lot to a 9 lot total, then what we've approved is no longer applicable, right?
If you approve this 19-lot subdivision contingent on a CDOT access permit, and then CDOT doesn't grant the access permit, then
It's
there would be
done.
no more subdivision. I mean, all this is gonna be contingent, if that's the direction you decide to go, all of it's gonna be contingent on CDOT granting the access permit.
So
So,
they'd-
so
they'd
we
have
would
to
find
start
out
over.
what the limit of CDOT is, or if there's the turn lane AC/DC requirements and they want to proceed with that to get to the 19 lots, that would be their option. But if they follow any restrictions from CDOT, then we would just recommend that they come back with whatever that limit is and whatever configuration they would like to approach, and just have them go back through the process.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, then I will open this up to public comment. Anybody wishing to speak for or against this application, please come forward to the podium. State your name and address for the record, and you may address the board. And please turn on the mic and hold it as close as you can so that everybody on TV can hear you.
Okay, how's that?
Perfect.
My name is Kim Haas. I live at 16832 Highway 145 in Dolores. I do have one question for the attorney, if I may. You mentioned about residents in the subdivision could bring civil action if covenants are not followed. Are others outside of the subdivision allowed to bring civil action?
And so this is a public comment period. If you want to address some questions, I can address them after you're done.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. I'm opposed to the subdivision. I'm opposed to the county continuing to subdivide the county. We are turning into one big suburbia, and that's not what a lot of us want. And despite what one of the commissioners told my husband last week on the phone, that it is what we wanted, we didn't vote for any of you. And we didn't move here to live in a suburban area, in a city, which is what this is becoming. We wanted it to be rural. And I really am disappointed that this is happening to our county. Thank you.
Okay, next. Just a reminder to everybody, this is public comment. This is your turn to talk, our turn to listen. If you are requiring attorney advice, we do recommend that you hire your attorneys to give you advice of which way that you want to go. Our attorney represents the Board of County Commissioners, and that's specifically where he's at. So remember, this is your public comment time and ours to listen.
My name is Mark Christensen. I live at 16832 Highway 145. I was glad to hear that you are, instead of just putting a to be determined date for this, you're actually going to put a date on it, which hasn't been happening before. One thing you mentioned to subdivisions do result in significant adverse impact to adjoining land. I know you've approved one last month, which is going to affect our property where we have some other property. And I talked to all three of you on the phone, and it was brought up about this to be determined is not a good thing. Even though it might be legal in the land use code, it's not really great for the county. At least one of you agreed with me on that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next.
Hello. I'm Marlo Bennett, 18094 Road 27, and I'm opposed to the subdivision in part due to the increased demand on our water supply in an area impacted by significant drought. Also, in terms of the demand on existing
Okay, next.
My name is Beth, and I live at 17625 Road 2727. I oppose this.
Is that on?
Oh, okay. It is now. My property touches one of these corners, and when we purchased this property last year, part of the draw was this corridor of large parcels giving us this rural feeling. And it feels just too much to put this many structures in a rural place. And this is a wildlife corridor. There are so many wild animals and deer and everything that go through there. And I would agree with the last comment about the night lighting. There is significant darkness in that area that is just beautiful and keeping peace with this rural area. So, yeah, the water, and it just seems like it would be a very large impact to our property, as well as I would like there to be, make sure that there are restrictions on how many or how many houses can be on there, or structural requirements. So, thank you.
Next. Okay, seeing no further public comment, I'll close the public comment section of this. And I still don't see the applicant on Zoom or in person. So, gentlemen, I'll bring it back.
And Don, if I may just ask a quick question, there was a comment about water supply. There's no issue with water supply to this subdivision, right?
No, we've got a letter from Montezuma Water that water's adequate available.
Okay.
Okay.
You have anything else, Gerald?
Well, so in the covenants now, this restriction of one house per lot is in these covenants or not?
No, he's
Correct.
saying that it was
Yeah.
discussed at the planning and zoning. Our land use code states that you can have an ADU.
Correct.
And you can have 2 lots
Two residents.
or 2 residents per lot. So what their recommendation was, I guess because of the utility corridor, that they restricted to 1 per lot.
Correct.
Is that correct? But that was not a contingency that they moved forward with their approval. The only contingency that they had for the covenants was a condition for the tri-state easement.
Correct.
Don,
So-
I see a lot of other properties surrounding the subject property that's going to propose to be subdivided. Are there any sort of restrictions for one dwelling on any of those lots that surround this subject property?
I would have to go double check that. I know, to the west of there is a commercial subdivision. There's like 5 commercial lots. This is right across the road from the, Anasazi Heritage Center. Like you say, it's within a few hundred yards of, the highway. That area's got probably 7 subdivisions all around in that area of varying sizes and configurations. I don't know of any specific restrictions. I'd have to look that up.
Commissioner, I think it's probably important to remain consistent with this. I don't know what kind of restrictions there are on properties surrounding this subject property, but I mean, if we've got other subdivisions that are butted up right against it and there's no restrictions on 1 dwelling unit per property, then we probably shouldn't impose that on this one,
Well, I
and
guess
vice versa.
That's my question too, because we don't necessarily deal with covenants at all. Those are primarily up to the developer. And I'm just gonna bring up another part of the conversation. I mean, with housing costs as high as they are, all of the conversations that we are in today are, if you can have an ADU on another piece of property, it then actually helps to pay, and people can actually get homes. So it's a huge issue in the land use codes right now for the cities, the municipalities, towns. And I think to restrict it to that, I think being consistent and staying with what the land use code says is by far more beneficial. And if the developer wants to restrict it, then get with the neighbors or whoever, that's really up to them. That's really not up to us to restrict. That's just my,
The only other consideration that might be in play here is access. And so if you're going to allow the possibility of 38 homes as opposed to 19, how's that going to affect the access permit? There's a lot of different things.
Because the land use code, when Cdot does their recommendation, they're gonna see what our land use code says. So it would be contingent on Cdot anyway, the way it is what I'm hearing from Commissioner Copenhaver, so. if they
CDOT
don't
doesn't
approve-
evaluate our land use code in anything they do.
CDOT's just going to be
So,
looking at
they're
the
just gonna look at
number of
traffic
people that are
count.
going to be accessing this thing, and if there's 38 homes, conceivably, that's going to be a higher number than if there's 19. And I don't know whether that plays into the developer's calculus or not, but, I mean, that's just another thing out here to think about.
Okay,
You have any problem?
No. Let's see if I can get this worded right. I so move we approve the proposed 19-lot major subdivision and AR 3 through 9 rezoning application submitted by Mark Cox, agent, Andy Cox, on property located, I phrased that wrong, submitted by Mark Cox, agent Andy Cox, on property located at to be determined Road 25, Dolores, Colorado, contingent upon a Cdot access permit and with recognition of the utility corridor that runs through there.
Second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the proposed 19-lot major subdivision and AR 3 through 9 rezoning application submitted by Mark Cox, agent Andy Cox, on property located at to be determined Road 25, Dolores, Colorado, with the condition of the tri-state easement and the condition contingent on the response from CDOT.
Correct.
It's actually the obtaining a CDOT access permit, is that correct?
Obtaining a CDOT access permit. Good?
Good.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I don't have any.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Motion passes, and I will close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Okay. That's all we have for public hearings.
Correct. The other item we have is a variance application. This is presented by the florist. We had the discussion with them, or I did, back in December. And part of the requirements of the variance application was to get the non-opposition letter from the affected neighbor to the east, at which time they did submit the application. It was, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks later that we received the non-opposition letter. But at that point, this was in January, there was some miscommunication between us and the applicant. The applicant took it that if they got the signed non-opposition letter, that was approval for them to proceed. After we received the non-opposition letter, we never formally brought this variance application to the commissioners. Subsequently, the property, the house has been built. And so when we contacted them, couple, 3 weeks ago, then that's the position we're in now. The reason that they picked that location and how it gets there is due to the lay of the land in order to fit their septic system in there. And in order to meet the setback requirements of that system, they really don't have any other opportunity to build in that whole northeast corner of their lot. They moved it as far south as they did to meet the 30-foot minimum setback, but they could not move it any further west to give the 30 feet to the east property line.
So the structure's already in place.
Correct. And we do have the non-opposition letter on file from the adjoining neighbor
To the,
to the east. Correct.
And how come they built the house before coming before us?
Because they had obtained the non-opposition letter with the application, and unfortunately, we never did process the application after we received the non-opposition letter to bring it to the commission. So we dropped the ball there and overlooked getting that to you prior to any construction.
So I think the reality remains that, I mean, until there's approval for a variance from this board,
It's out of compliance.
it's out of compliance. And so that, I think that's the reality of it. I don't know that it affects one way or the other what you guys want to do with this, but.
well, here's the reality of it, is we continually erode the land use code with variances. That's my opinion, and I'll leave it at that. They do have a non-opposition letter to the east, which is the only one that affects. The north is the 30-foot.
Correct.
So they are compliant there. So it's just, but what are we
I
gonna
know
do
what
now?
you're saying.
Ask them to move the house 15 feet? I mean, what? Is there a fine that's imposed? What do we do? But was it our fault that the application wasn't moved forward?
Correct.
So if it's our fault, then we have to own that.
Yeah.
And we can't necessarily,
How many other residences are down there? Is that
Just
just that one?
two. Yeah, there's the modular, and then the new one is a stick-built.
These other buildings are just outbuildings, garages and stuff?
Correct.
Right.
Don, when you,
What are you two looking at me
this
for?
this was our fault. I don't
have one.
I don't like the 15-foot setback because, I mean, it can be moved to 30 feet. However, this was our fault because we didn't, obviously must not carry through in December, January. And we can't
Let me-
really,
Yeah.
we can't go back on this homeowner if it was our fault.
And Don, you said that this was built 15 feet from the property line because of issues with the septic. Can you tell us a little bit more about what those issues were? I mean, did it make it impossible to build 30 feet from the property line?
Correct.
And why? What was the situation?
Due to where they had to locate the septic system and for it to fit and to have it flow.
That slopes off,
Right here is a pretty good hillside right here.
really slopes off like crazy, so you can't put that septic system on that slope.
And the state also requires on septic systems, particularly the leach field, a minimum of 10-foot setback from property lines. And obviously, you can't have it daylight out through a hillside.
But the septic system is not is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the structure. The
Right, but
structure's
due,
not
due to
compliant.
the septic system, that positioned, the location for the house.
And so in granting this variance, I think my advice would be if you're gonna grant this variance, I think you need to grant it on the basis that there was nowhere else to put the septic system in the house because of that slope. I would be really careful about granting this variance due to, what may have been an oversight in the planning department, because ultimately, at the end of the day, folks need to wait until they get approval for these variances before they build. Now, if you grant this variance because this was the only option for this property owner, because of the unique nature of the land, then that's gonna separate it from other circumstances. And so, it sounds to me like this is a very unique circumstance with the land
Correct.
that necessitated placing the house where it's placed.
Right, yeah, it wasn't just a wish, it was just due to the lay of the land and the septic system dictated where and how far away from the property line that house could reside.
That's arguable, because I see a lot of real estate. Okay,
Okay,
further discussion?
no.
Okay. What's your pleasure?
I would so move we approve the variance application submitted by Adolfo and Macedonia Flores on property located 25325 Road F, considering the unique properties of this land here and the unavailability of setbacks.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the variance application submitted by Adolfo and Macedonia Flores on property located at 25325 Road F, Cortez, Colorado, consisting of 2.39 acres more or less, due to the unique property location and the setbacks of the property. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Okay,
Thank you.
there you go.
And we have one other item, is to sign the Mylar for the Voiles previously approved subdivision.
Okay. Okay, anything else for us, Don?
No, I just, I guess, had a discussion with Ian yesterday. We had sent out a non-compliance letter to a resident on County Road 25, west of 184. Just was conferring, I believe you had seen this property as well, and just was trying to confirm it was the same property.
I think it was the property that we all viewed last Tuesday. So yes, that property
Okay.
needs to have a compliance letter sent out.
All
And
right,
I think
did
that
send
was-
them one. They did leave a message on a Saturday, but the phone won't accept voicemail, so I'll send another letter explaining what they're doing is not compliant and needs to be changed.
So, actually, I think we should probably have that discussion. I think when I had a conversation with the attorney is that we should probably pick, because we've had a few complaints of non-compliant properties, and pick the top three in case they do have to go to litigation, because we can't necessarily litigate more than 3 at a time, and get those priorities by the commissioners out. So you guys have all seen the emails. Do you have, obviously, we're gonna send this one out for the trash that's on this property and being out of compliant.
So what I recommend, and I chatted with Don about this yesterday, is that we put an item on the agenda next week.
Okay.
And we bring forth the properties, and then you guys can kind of give us direction how you want to move with those.
Okay, sounds good.
I have had response from, I believe, 5 out of the 6 letters I sent 2 weeks ago. This being one, which obviously the response says that's what they always do, so that's not gonna fly. I'll send them another letter. So yeah, I don't know that I have a list right now of those that have been notified and are just refusing to do what they're supposed to do, so.
Well, I think we can help you come up with that list, because we have several of them.
If you have others that need to be notified, then I would need that list.
Yep, we'll get it to you.
Fair enough.
Okay,
All right.
all right. So how many do you have how many do we have? I think you said we have one in court right now?
Right now, we just have one in court,
One in court, so we could add at least 2 more.
2 more.
Okay.
And we've got one pending, with communication between their attorney and Ian.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll prioritize the next ones and we'll get them sent out, and then we'll keep that number of 3 continued going till we get them
Okay.
compliant. Okay. All
Very
right.
good. All right.
Thank
That's
you.
all I got.
All right, next thing on our agenda, we have our county operations. First thing is our vehicle maintenance. Mr. Higman, you are first.
I don't have a lot. I need to get approval for a vehicle. So the one you guys approved the last time I was in here ended up having a flatbed on it, and they wanted $12,000 for the flatbed, so we threw that one to the side and bailed on the one from Enterprise. It was gonna push it well over $60,000 to just buy it, and then we would've had to do something with the flatbed, so decided to just bail on that. And then we've been looking for the last month, and I actually found these 2. Enterprise found one that they'd have to ship here from Florida, and then this one, this Desert 215, is down in Las Vegas. These 2 trucks both have utility boxes on them. We won't have to install them. They'll just get here, go straight to work, put county stickers, unit numbers on them, and be done. But Enterprise's number came in higher. This Desert 215, we'll just pay them with a check, bring it here, we'll own it, have the title, deal with the licensing, everything from there. So I'm just looking for approval on this Dodge down in Las Vegas.
So this is going then to the maintenance department?
Yeah,
And the maintenance department is then turning their vehicle in?
that, they still have that dually that we've been talking about. That one will get a flatbed put on it and it'll go replace both pickups that the landfill currently has. Because it can be, it's a much better pickup for the landfill because there's wide open spaces down there. It's a 4-door, they need a crew truck. So it will go down there. The pickup that we're replacing isn't due for replacement per se, but it doesn't fit the department need, so we're going to send it to the landfill to where it will fit their need and get maintenance, a pickup that will fit their need.
So my question is, so we're gonna
getting rid of-
take that box off of that truck? Wouldn't we be better off to sell it as a unit, as it is, and find another truck that fits the landfill needs?
This
I mean, we're
pickup
doing
only
a
has-
lot of swapping back and forth here.
There's not gonna be, it'll just be a flatbed put on this truck and the utility bed taken off. I mean, it's all wired, ready to go. You just tie the flatbed into the wiring that is there for the utility box, and then we'll sell the utility box as a whole. And this one has a lot more years, the dually has a lot more years in it. It only has, I think it's 45,000 or 50,000 miles on it. So it has another 8 years of use down at the landfill if we just put a flatbed on it. So that was the thoughts there. Get
The
everybody
two-
what?
The two vehicles that's at the landfill now are gonna be sold?
They'll
or-
be sold, yeah. They've
Okay.
used their lifespan.
They're 93s
Well, there's a
and
93.
2008s.
Yeah, there's a 93 F-350 down there, and then there's a, I think it's a 2003 half-ton Chevy, and we're gonna get rid of both of those, and they'll just have this one 4-door crew truck for the landfill.
That lack of chips in that 93 might be worth something.
Uh-huh.
Questions?
No.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I move to approve the purchase of this Dodge. It's a Dodge 2500 for $48,911,
Total.
25 cents. Cost of box that goes on is $10,816.61 for a total of $59,592.50.
Second.
Then moved, moved and seconded to accept the proposal to purchase the vehicle from Desert 215, a Dodge 2500, in the total amount of $59,592.50. Any further discussion?
You couldn't get him to come off that 50 cents?
I got him to come down from about 64,000.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Where do you stand with your pool vehicles?
We are currently gathering the pools and re-unit numbering them to, they'll just have unit numbers for the administration. And then, IT's made a schedule that we're going to roll out. I want to make sure all the bugs are worked out of everything before we completely roll it out, but we're, within the next week or two, we'll have everything going on the pool vehicle.
Okay. And then when will you have the others ready to get out of the,
I would like to let this pool vehicle thing ride for a month and get all the bugs worked out and make sure everything's gonna work the way it's supposed to, and then we'll gather up the other vehicles and get them sold.
okay, and we're still looking at 12 to 15?
There was 10, it was 10 vehicles total, and 4 of them will be pool cars, so it'll be like 6, we'll drop 6 vehicles.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Shane?
No.
All right. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay,
Thanks,
all
Shane.
right.
Thank you.
Building and maintenance, Dustin.
Morning.
Good morning.
So we finished up that mini split up there at the road department for those offices, or the new office and 2 other rooms. We had the defroster, the controller for the defroster on the freezer out at the fairgrounds. It failed, so we shot that and replaced it and got that back up and running again. We have a new wall framed up in the weed department's herbicide shop to divide the office space from the herbicide, so we can get it vented out better for the employees. And then we've been working on replacing some lights for Rob around their building there, and added a few because he said it was too dark in the morning. And a couple of them, they were already LED, but the individual LEDs were starting to fail, so we just changed them out. And getting ready for winter, or trying to. Got some ice melt ordered and stuff like that.
Okay, and then we're still on track for that meeting tonight with the water company, right?
Yeah, I can be there.
Are you and Justin both going with me, or?
We can.
Okay, do you still have that copy of that, just to refresh the other commissioners of what we were talking about for that suppression system at the fairgrounds? Do you have a copy of that? You can email it to us later.
For the cost wise?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the addition of the suppression line, and then the addition of what they want to charge us for a tap fee.
Yeah.
And then that meeting starts at 6:30 tonight, correct?
I believe so.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
all right, thank you. And be that it's 10 o'clock, I'm gonna hold you, because I always do try to let the public lands, when they do show up in person, to get them up here as close to 10 o'clock as I possibly can. So with that, Derek, the Forest Service is here. I'm gonna bring him up, and Jim, you're just gonna have to sit back and wait a little bit.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So don't have a whole lot this month. Things are, moving along as far as our vegetation management on the forest. Got quite a bit of activity up there with sales pretty much from our western border all the way up to Groundhog, both Ponderosa and Aspen sales. We will be releasing the the draft decision and the final environmental assessment for the Beaver Rim gravel pit next week is what the plan is right now. We don't anticipate that we're going to get any objections. We only had one comment letter from CPW just asking that we take into consideration migration corridors. So we took that into consideration and are moving forward with that project. So that should be available for use probably next spring is probably the earliest we would be able to get to that. We will need to do some tree clearing of the area before the county would be able to actually get in there and start producing gravel from that site. And really that's about all at this point in time, unless the commissioners have any questions or topics they would like to discuss.
How big is that pit? I mean, obviously, we can see the footprint of what used to be there, but, I mean, what?
So we're adding an additional about 19 acres. And they did some testing, Rob and our folks went out there, and we anticipate that we'll have about 10 years worth of gravel out of that pit at a minimum.
Okay, good, because that was going to be my next question, is what kind of reserves do you think you have there? So 10 years, and that's based on what kind of tonnage?
Boy, I don't know those specifics.
Okay.
It is that information is in the EA.
Okay.
So if you want to take a look at that, that information's there.
All right. That's all I have.
Is that to the west? Is that where the 19 acres is?
It would be to the south, if I'm thinking right. Yes,
So it kind of parallels the road.
correct.
Goes along the top of the mesa then.
Yep.
I hope it's to the west.
What's that?
I said, I hope it's to the west, because if it goes to the south, that's the road.
Yeah, well,
Well, that's, I'm
I mean,
thinking
to
wrong.
me,
Maybe I'm thinking
yeah.
wrong.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it parallels the road basically, and then, I mean, it does go to the west a little bit, but it's just a
Yeah.
a strip.
It's just a sliver
Yep,
on the top.
correct.
Yep. Okay.
Couple of quick questions.
Sure.
I took a trip to Durango Sunday and noticed, is there pine beetles headed this way into our forests? Because some of those look like they're really diseased.
I mean, pine beetles are endemic to
Everywhere.
the area.
Yeah.
So we will have pockets, here and there. There's definitely an outbreak over in that Cherry Creek area.
Yeah.
There on the private and on the tribal lands. The Colorado State Forestry is working with those folks,
Okay.
to address that issue down there. On our side, there again, we do have pockets here and there. It's definitely not to the extent that what we're seeing over on the west side of the forest. But we do have, like I said, they're just naturally here,
Right.
and they take advantage when conditions line up for them.
Then the aspen kill, is it still pretty bad?
We've actually made some pretty good strides, with the Aspen program that we've had in place here, since I think the mid to early 90s.
Right.
Has really done a great job. Basically, after those aspen trees start getting decadent, they just become more receptive to, pathogens of different types and things of that sort. So, because now, with Aspen Wallwood and Western Excelsior before them, and then now Western Excelsior again, but Aspen Wallwood, we've been able to treat those areas, and, creating those younger stands, definitely helps the clone to survive. So, while we do have areas, here and there that are because they're tougher ground, we haven't treated in there. We may be having, some decline there. Overall, because of the program that we've had here on the forest, things are doing fairly well, relatively speaking.
One other just off the hand, you see a lot of increase in mining claims?
Not this year, but over the course of the last, 5 or 6 years, it seems like every year we have somebody setting up a new, they believe with these unpatented mining claims that it gives them the ability to live and build on forest, which it doesn't with unpatented mining claims. So, like I said, over the course of the last few years, we've had to deal with that on 2 or 3 occasions per year. But this year, I haven't had that issue. Yeah, with all these TV programs, about mining and things
Yeah.
of that sort, it definitely has.
That's where I was going.
Yes, it definitely has piqued people's interest. And online, you can find, unpatented mining claims, for sale. And unfortunately, people, get, scammed, for lack of a better word, into purchasing them. Believing there again that it then gives them a private property right as far as residential living and things like that. They do technically have, rights to any locatable minerals, but that doesn't give you the right to live on national forest.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right, you're welcome.
All right. I don't have anything else, Derek. Commissioner Copenhagen?
No, I don't.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I don't see Mesa Verde here. Do we have anybody on Zoom? from the, okay. Well, then, we'll go back to the
Yeah.
upper area. We'll go to the IT and Mr. McLean. Now you get to come up.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I don't have a great deal, but I do have a couple of cameras that I wanted to share with you. We just recently put some new cameras in for elections. I wanted you to get an idea what they look like, because these are really nice cameras. So that's the one at the clerks. So what you don't see there that we can see on our end when we log in to on the maintenance side of it, there's the tabs up at the top, and you can click like people, and it within, I mean, a second, it goes through and it finds every image that has people, and it zooms in on their faces. So, and same thing with vehicles. So if we have an issue, you know, if something happens, we can just click on this. But what you're seeing is what we can share with anybody. It's just a read-only, view-only, live view, or we can share footage via just emailing them the link, and they can download only what we allow them to download footage-wise. So this is going to be big-time game changer for us when it comes to elections, because there'll be a lot less work involved, and it'll be more consistent across the board. So
I know that guy.
I know, I've been watching, I know a lot of those guys. We have one at the Dolores Town Hall right now. It's in, and we're getting ready this afternoon. I think this is the one he's coming up, is probably the Dolores Town Hall one. And then we have to go over to City Hall this afternoon, put the one in there, and then tomorrow we'll put one in Mancos. And then we just got to figure out how we're going to deal with the Roundup Junction one. So probably next year, I'm going to add a few more of these cameras to the outside of our buildings just for security, and sometimes we get some issues going on in the parking lots. It'd be nice to be able to get the footage quickly. I don't know why that's, I don't know. I don't know. Hit the refresh button at the top, see if it comes back up. I don't know why that one's taking a while. No answer there. Could be there, because you're getting a live view, so it could have something to do with Dolores Town Hall's internet, because it is dependent on that. But anyway, I just wanted you to see what those look like, and they're really nice. And Kim has her own login. Well, actually, the elections department has their own logins. They can manage their own election cameras. They can send the links. They can do all that. So, and other than that, I don't have a lot else other than I'm still working mostly on broadband when I've got in my spare time. And I think it's on the agenda for unfinished business for the letter of intent. But I meet this afternoon with Eric from Pagosa Springs, and apparently we have to come up with a technical plan for the application. So I only got like till Friday to get this done. So that's pretty much where our focus has been.
Okay. Commissioner's question?
No.
Anything else?
I do have one question for you, and it'll be to something that we're discussing later on, and we discussed it yesterday as far as floor security for the second floor of our security door, and I think Travis did state that, you know, it wouldn't be a big deal to add the card reader and a phone or a phone.
So you want to basically do kind of what we're doing downstairs, which is they can pick up the phone and they can dial it, push a button, and it'll ring whoever, and they can be let in. So we did have a conversation about that, and the reader and stuff, that's really not that difficult. That part's easy, other than I really hate putting mag locks in concrete and steel, but we manage and we'll make it work. The tricky part, and I know that originally Mr. Anderson had asked for, well, let's put like buttons inside the offices where you can push the button and buzz them in, but that's a little more complicated. So what we can do, though, is give them access to the website that controls that door, and then they can just unlock it from their computer. And then we're not adding a whole bunch more wiring and more complication, because it will get complicated.
So as we were walking out of the building yesterday, you know, we talked about two different locations, one up here and one down below. And if you look at the readers down below, that door is already there. It's actually usable. And there are readers on every door that are down there other than the door that comes up here. So would it not be better to put the reader down there where you have access to a phone and two girls right across the room that can visualize it? I mean, as we were walking out of here, we just stopped and looked at it for a second, and then they can,
I'd say the simple answer is that would be the simplest solution. It would be much easier for us to do it down there because we already have a path for everything.
yeah, and that's kind of what we were looking at also.
Yeah.
Because then all of the doors in that little corridor are secure, and that's kind of what we were looking at.
And
If-
so is the back door, so,
Yep, so it's totally locked off. The stairwell would be totally a secure area
correct.
at that point in time from every door.
Yes, because one thing, if you remember, I mentioned it, if we do this one up here, if we just happen to say, okay, we're gonna do this one, then you're gonna have to secure this one too, or you're defeating the whole purpose of locking it down. If that's what you're trying to accomplish, because then you got access here. So, this is gonna take double the work.
Right, and that's why we were looking at that as we walked out of the building.
And Dustin would
yesterday.
have to order a closure for this door that's out here in the stairwell, because there's no closure on it. And you're probably talking $400 or $500 for a decent closure for those big doors, those metal doors.
So we'll have that discussion later, whether we approve it or not. You know, again, it's kind of, we understand the situation, but that'll be a discussion here in a few minutes.
Okay.
But that would be quicker and easier to put together down
Yes,
there
sir.
anyway.
Yes, sir. And I do have one more thing to mention, because Commissioner Coppenhaver called me last week, and it's regarding cybersecurity, and you had asked me a question about that, and obviously, we all know Fremont County got hit pretty hard. And so now we're back on this whole worried about security thing, which I get, and I am aware of what's going on with it, and why I can't guarantee anything, because they always find ways through stuff. What I can tell you is that I went in and locked it down even more from the outside, so, you know, I hope that we're on it. That's all I can promise you. It's a very difficult line to walk, because the more you lock it down, the less people have access to. So you have to find that balance. It's kind of like emails, right? I can block more, but then you start losing, everything gets blocked that you really want, so it's really difficult. I'm gonna send out an email this afternoon to all of the employees, reminding them again about just being aware of their own stuff. So if you get an email and it says it's, you know, from, I don't know, Microsoft saying that you need to change your password, I can guarantee you that's not true, because Microsoft doesn't do that. So, but I'll send out an email this afternoon reminding everybody, because those are usually how they get in, through the emails. They use phishing techniques, and they get in and they spoof your emails, and so, but we're on it. We're watching it close. We do have our backup systems and our replication system, so hopefully we're covered if something should, God forbid, happen.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
GIS.
Well, I would like to go over a couple things today. It's been on my to-do list for a while, and I don't like leaving things on my to-do list for longer than they have to be. Good news that our GS specialist is going to be starting on the 26th, so waiting for that to happen. That's when he said he would be able to start, and he called and said that that would work for him here at the end of this month. So looking forward to that for sure, getting him trained and moving on with some larger future projects for next year. So, and one thing that we had talked about is a roadmap. I know we talked about that in the spring. I think we're ready to make some changes here and adopt a 2022 roadmap. Definitely like to get a roadmap done every 2 years, and we still have time to do that for the rest of this year. So I'm just going to go over the changes here, and then hopefully get that scheduled for a month from now and get that advertised and get this going. So there's a handful of changes here. If you look at this list, I kind of highlighted in that blue color most of the significant ones. So looking at this, some of these other ones that aren't highlighted, they say they're surface changes, where it does reflect on the road map that a road was gravel and is now paved, or in a couple cases vice versa. But that's not really significant. We will review all these changes one by one during the public hearing. Most of the map changes that we're looking at, pretty simple. The first one there, Road N, that's a segment that we did adopt in late 2020 to that BLM parking lot there in the Summit Lake area, but that was after that 2020 roadmap, so that's getting added. There is, if you can just scroll down one there, Trav, thank you. This one's kind of an interesting one. This one was made aware by a couple surveyors and a landowner down this area. It's the segment of 32 south of M, just below where L comes across. And we had it on our road map following that general kind of curved shape, what is essentially now a private drive. It does follow the section line, and I'm going to give a copy of this letter to Ian. Because this was discussed in the early 1990s, and there was a letter signed from the administrator, Tom Weaver at the time, signed by the chairman of the BOCC, that discussed this being a private road, public road. It does appear that is the opinion, that it is a public road that goes down that, I believe it's half a mile there, yeah, half a mile total. So the discussion really, and I haven't talked to Rob about this, but the discussion is, do we just leave it stand as is, as a red road? On our road map, it clearly says, that red roads are roads that are not, currently part of the primary county road system, is kind of how things are lined out. Doesn't mean that it looks like could be a case that you could make to turn it green in the future. I don't think that there's a reason or a movement to do that this time. We do need to get it aligned with what is agreed upon easement in other recorded documents, and we'll certainly do that. But the question is, do you turn it to green and say it's an unmaintained county road segment and leave it be? There is that somewhat orphan BLM parcel down there. Looks like a 40-acre chunk that's sitting down there that it could potentially provide access to, but there's nothing but a 2-track going across a field. So that's where that map change stands. We'll gather some more information, but for now, my proposal at least is to get that red road aligned to what that easement would be. The next one is, this was a small map change that Rob brought to us. We had this highlighted segment, and that's Lost Canyon Lake there, just north of 184. And we had shown green up to this next cul-de-sac. That's actually part of the private subdivision road, so we brought that back to where the current county maintenance ends there. Minor map correction. And then the next map correction to really talk about here is turning a portion of Road Y here to red. And my only question is where we are proposing this to end at. historically, the road would come down to the farmhouse here. This is the edge of the BLM. This is where the gate lies. So you either bring it back here or end up in one of these two locations. So that is really the discussion what we're looking at doing, the proposal for that map change.
So, per the stipulation, the legal case, this road ends at the northern boundary of that private property. What we had talked about was whether we wanted to scale it back further. And I think in order to do that, what I would suggest is if you guys do want to scale it back further, that we abandon our county right away up to that property line. So it would be from up here down to the property line.
First little,
Exactly.
first little U. And then everything else would be abandoned. But
Yep.
that right away.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
So a BLM road would remain, but,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't be under the county control anymore.
So it stops right at that property line?
Well, we can stop it there, we can stop it higher up.
Right at the Y,
He's talking
or,
even up higher.
yeah.
Because there's no other access off of that road to any other property. in
Right,
Subdivision
so
BLM.
that's what I'm saying, why wouldn't we stop it up here higher? Just to where you get, you can still have access to BLM, but we don't need to maintain anything further down.
At the BLM, at the northern BLM, where it's
Yes.
access to public lands,
Cor-
stop, prevents.
Correct, make sure that everybody has access to the public lands, but stop it, I don't know, I don't know how far that is, but that's kind of what I mean, that makes the most sense to me.
And so if we're gonna do that, my suggestion would be, that we draw up a resolution, abandoning from the top, and I can work with Doug to get the exact description of the portion that we're gonna be abandoning, and then move forward with that process.
There's no other access to any private land off of that up through there, is there? All of that just goes to that one place, right?
Just to that one property owner.
Correct, because the property that is to the west of this, you see that BLM road that's up in the corner there, that's how that person's now getting access to that. Now, you know, historic conditions aside, that is how that property that's to the west of this one, that historically may have had access to that, that's not really the issue, is getting access to that BLM road on that northwest corner.
I would just say, work with Doug, get that
Okay.
put together in an ordinance, and then we can look at it, and then.
Resolution.
Do we want to do that concurrently with the roadmap, or, I mean, it can be separate as well, just like we can abandon roads together?
Yeah, we can do it separately,
Okay.
or together, it doesn't matter. I'll get with you and we can get the resolution drawn up, with the description and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it would make sense just to get it all done
Yep.
concurrently if we can, even if we push the roadmap back a couple weeks, that's fine
Okay.
as well. So those are really the only significant roadmap changes that we have, so not really a lot in the past couple of years. The rest of them are all, and I'll go over them just so you know where this development is occurring, where we're adding red roads, but the rest of them are all red roads, new subdivisions, stuff like that. And then the other item of business that's been hanging around for a while is, the public notice. I'll go over this with Ian, and we'll go ahead and get that scheduled and get a resolution number and get that published. It's gonna be the same, I'm just proposing the same exact language that we published in the newspaper, and the same exact adoption resolution that we had in 2020, so. So if you scroll down a little bit more, Travis, and we'll go to that should be the last one there. I don't know if you can zoom in just a little bit on that into the area where all the commissioner districts come together. But if you remember after the decennial census, we're supposed to adopt new commissioner districts per state statutes. Maybe I misplaced that paper that oh, here it is. I'm gonna give Ian a copy of this one real quick. It just discusses it. So, Census District, the Census Bureau was having a hard time getting their numbers together. And so, and then during COVID, whatever, they decided to delay it. Normally, it should have been September 30th of 2021. So then they delayed that 2 years. So essentially, we have until September 30th next year. Obviously, we decided not to do that prior to this election period. My proposal is to get this done as soon as we can, just, you know, as a task. Maybe this fall isn't the best. You know, budget and a lot of other things. So I don't know if you want to look at this the first thing next year. You have any opinions on that, Kim? What would be a good time for you?
Sorry. So the sooner we can get started on it at the beginning of next year, the sooner we can get all of our address library updated, and then when we get to the very first election for next year, we're all set.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
So start it right after the first of the year.
I would
Okay.
like to. That was my intention, was to get with Doug as soon as I could.
Okay.
Towards the end of this year, the first of next year.
And I just keep thinking about it. So I'm just going to present just a little bit of information just in support of that, some things to start thinking about in relation to that. Essentially, there is no specific statute that defines the variance between the commissioner districts. It says as nearly equal in population as possible. Typically, the threshold that's used is the one that applies to the state legislative districts, which is within 5%. So not too difficult, and it depends on where we want to go with this. So I'm not going to dive too deep into it, but if you look at the commissioner districts, as we have them now, with the 2020 population numbers that we're going to be adopting this off of right now, we have District 1 at 8306, we have District 2 at 9075, and District 3 at 8530. So simplest change, if we wanted to do the least change possible, one proposal would be to go ahead and move that District 2 line down to County Road M, and that would essentially take 272 people, it'd put it into District 1, and we'd be probably within about 2%. That's a least change kind of a scenario. I'm not sure, you know, and of course we're looking at, you know, at-large commissioner districts, so it's more about making sure that the districts logically make sense to people and logically make sense to the representation, so they knew who their representative is. And then thinking, are the commissioners good with how those representation lines work, and people are used to them, and you know, do we want to go with that scenario? Because of course there's possibilities. You look at the population of Cortez is currently 8,700, so I mean theoretically you could have one commissioner district that is just the city of Cortez city limits, period, and then that's it. What does that look like? We currently, you know, take a little bit of Cortez out and give that to District 3 and shift things around a little bit. You could have scenarios where you split Cortez into 3 different districts right down the middles. What does that look like? So I'm just talking out loud.
I think that sounds pretty good. Then you guys got to go to the council meeting.
Well, a portion is Cortez in District 3, so you guys might want to, you know, have that conversation.
But it's really, I mean, it's whatever I think works logically for people.
I think it's minor impact if you, so you're saying just move it down to M Road right across to 491 from 145.
That's the quickest thing. I said,
And
what's
then adds
population here? Boom, move it right down.
256 to 1 takes 256 away from 2, which is super close to the same number.
Yeah. Yep. And
It doesn't matter to me.
And, you know, they're already in score the way they were. We did work with a lot of the other precincts to make sure that they were aligned as possible with other voting and district boundaries for that. The commissioner districts aren't aligned in every way to those, so that's more a question with Kim, how much she would like to evaluate small alignments to make sure that we don't have to reduce the number of ballots and ballot variations. So maybe we'll look at that kind of separately just to make sure that we can align them wherever feasibly possible without significantly changing.
Yeah, I would just say whenever you guys get it put together in January to see what works the best for you, Kim, as far as your fulfilling that, you know, if it works, great, and if you need to, I mean, the number sounds correct.
So this gives me a really good idea of how I can start looking at those different districts and those different splits to see how that would create or what that would create. So I can look at this and kind of get an idea, but this looks like the simplest.
Yeah, okay. We'll look at that with your election folks and then get back with me what
Okay.
proposal you want to make. I think the state statutes say how that needs to be done and adopted, so.
All right.
And, I think that's all I got for today.
And then that's the last of everything we have to do for the next 10 years, right?
Yeah,
Once we get this done?
yep,
Okay.
yep. I mean, there are other entities in the county that are subject to those similar sets of rules, and we let them know that we're willing to work with them and provide them a certain amount of technical assistance, but it's up to their administration and to do that.
All right.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks.
All right, next on our agenda, we have our public comment session. Person speaking during the public comment will be limited to 3 minutes, or depending on the number of people wishing to speak, may be reduced to allow all members of the public the opportunity to address the board. When addressing the board, please state your name and address for the record prior to providing your comments. And comments to individual supervisors or staff are not permitted, and participants may not yield their time. And with that, the public comment session is open.
Good morning. My name is Mike Lynch. My address is 21730 County Road S. This morning during the P&Z session, there was some public comment about some of the applications regarding a subdivision being approved in a somewhat rural area of the county. And what I heard from at least one landowner was that, you know, they purchased their land in the rural part of the county for specific reasons, and one of those being the properties, not land properties, but the feel of the rural area and the conditions that are there that you don't find in suburban or the city. And to have a subdivision come in and be approved in that area really takes away from the enjoyment of their land. I've heard public comment this year in regard to several PUDs that were being applied for and approved, and some of those, the comments of the landowners in regard to those PUDs were similar in that they purchased their property in a rural area for specific reasons, and these PUDs were changing the feel of the area around their land, so that I got the impression they weren't going to enjoy their land like they had intended when they chose to purchase there. So I'm asking that you give consideration to look at the land use code again, and with anything else that you have in mind to change or look at, I would specifically ask that you solicit input about that issue. How our rural areas are being changed by these PUDs or other subdivisions being approved there, and what changes to the land use code could be made that could satisfy both developers of land and rural land owners. I don't know the solution, but I think if you solicit input from enough people, you might get some good ideas. The biggest thing I come away with is, boy, the next time I go to purchase land, the first thing I'm going to do is read the land use code, because it could completely change how I feel about the land that I buy, whether it's here in this county or any other county in the United States of America. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. My name is Alan Mays, 21693 County Road 21 in Lewis. I come with a specific question. I want to just address the use of the county annex and how it's being changed, if any. I don't know if there's been any discussion on how the county annex is being utilized and what folks are being charged for. So I guess it's just a question of how that came about. There are lots of different entities that use the county annex, and so I just want to know if there's been discussion that I've missed at some meeting. And so if there is, I'd like some clarification on how and who can use that and who's going to be charged and who isn't. It is a public facility, and in the past, that's how I've understood it to be, was being offered to the public for meetings. And if I need to clarify anything, let me know before stepping away. But I understand that maybe that has been discussed with the commissioners, and then also maybe with the departments. I did speak with the department head of the annex. He felt there was some change that he hadn't been privy to. So that's one issue that I want to bring forward. The other is the change in the agenda with the public comment session. I don't know if there was another reason for moving that as well down the line on the agenda, but I know that we still do have opportunity to speak about things, but once things have been approved by the commissioners, then it seems to be mute if we have a comment on something that doesn't have public comment during that portion of the agenda. So that's just one more thing that I'd like to have addressed somehow to the public, so people know when changes are made either to the agenda or to use of the public facilities, that there's more transparency to the public. So anyway, that's my issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. I'll close the public comment session of this, and we'll go into unfinished business. Turf replacement program request. We had this on our agenda yesterday for our workshop. We never had the gentleman show up, so we never had a presentation. So as far as I know, this has nothing, no pertinence of anything to do with us today, so we're going to go right by that. The Attainable Housing Strategies Report, we've already discussed that with Don Haley this morning and approved Ayers Corporation to do that IHOP strategies report. Road 23 closure request, we had a request yesterday, it came before us. Obviously, we had a discussion to close 23 from, I believe it was Y to Z. Is that what we established?
Yeah.
And so we can have more discussion today, or obviously make a decision on that today. And I think out of the discussion yesterday, nobody felt that there was any reason to close the road because we worked so hard to try and keep all of the roads that we can open. So,
So move, we deny the request to close Road 23 from Y to Z.
Second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded to deny the request to close Road 23 from Y to Z. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the second floor security door, we did have a little bit of discussion earlier this morning with our IT director on what his thoughts and comments were. And I think it does make more sense, instead of securing this door up here, that we secure the first level door, so that all the card readers are there and that the stairwell is then secure without adding all of the other components up here.
Right.
So instead of this second floor security door, gentlemen, we should probably, if it's in your pleasure, we'll call it the first floor security door. And do we want to go ahead and approve that?
Yes, with stipulation it remains open during commissioner meetings.
Okay. All right.
You okay with that, Ian?
You all right with that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any legal issue with it.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the first floor security door to be granted for security for our offices upstairs. And the only contingency is that it will remain open during the commissioners' meetings. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next we move on to the Esoterra discussion or decision. Ian, I'll turn this one over to you.
And this is really one that needs to go to Kim and Jerry, but basically, there was the request for the commissioners to indicate approval or not for the Esoterra liquor license that's being applied for with the state, so.
And basically, the application just says, I agree, or we don't agree. And you just mark the box, right?
And so ultimately, the state's going to approve or deny this permit. This isn't something that we're going to do, but what the state is asking for is a position statement from the county indicated by that checkbox.
So we know about it and that it's happening under their liquor license.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah, they basically just
So we're not-
they want the county's position for the application. That's one of the application requirements. And so we just need to indicate our position one way or the other. We're not granting a license for anything though here.
Right. It's just that we know about it and that it's happening.
Yep.
Okay, we talked about this a little bit yesterday in our discussion, also at our workshop, and I don't think that anybody had any issues with it yesterday. We can't make a decision, but we can make the decision today to say yay or nay.
I don't have any problem with it. I move we, I guess, sign this license authority application for the Colorado Liquor Sales Room, saying we have no problem with Esoterra having this event at the Montezuma Orchard Restoration Project.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to sign the application for the Colorado Liquor Sales Room for Esoterra that we do not object for the event that they are having at 13751 Road 29, Dolores, Colorado. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Ian, to your report.
Yeah, so two things to add to my report. Late last week, I was served with a petition for review in the Tina Peters matter. The attorneys for Tina Peters are asking the Supreme Court to review the Court of Appeals decision dismissing that petition for the recount. And so that has been filed, that has been served on all the counties, and at this point, really, the Supreme Court's gonna have to decide whether they even want to entertain that, and then if they do, they'll order briefing and it'll move forward. But at this point, that's been filed. The Supreme Court hasn't issued any sort of order either way, but that is out there. The only other minor thing that I have to report is the Ellis Lewis land use matter that was set for trial early next year. We did get an order from the court indicating that the sitting judge's term ends right 3 days after that trial was scheduled for. And so we're actually going to move that trial sooner. So we're going to have it quicker than we were. So usually things move the other way and we end up pushing things out, but we're going to rein this one in and set it sooner. So we'll do that next week. Get together with the clerk and get a date set. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Travis?
Really busy week last week. However, the biggest aspects is I was able to spend about 3 to 4 hours with the noxious weed department. Watched them remove Russian olives and salt cedars, and that was kind of a very interesting process, and they're really doing a good job. The other aspect is met with Mod Homes during an economic development, and working towards some workforce housing, some different designs. They use the canisters that they bring from overseas and build houses out of it. And really interesting, really interesting. So that's the biggest things that I had this week to report.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner's report. I think I started on my left last week, so I'll start on my right today.
Not much to report. A lot of phone calls, text messages, and some personal meetings, and some stemming from some other meetings we had before. And City Council is tonight. Anybody wants to attend? Work session starts at 6:30, am I right? 6:15, and council starts at 7:30, so.
Yeah, but I think at 6 that they keep switching.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look at their agenda to see what's up tonight.
I looked, but I don't remember.
Okay.
One thing that's up for, I read it and I just forgot it. What they were speaking about tonight was some funds for housing project. I remember seeing that coming across. Or
Probably their IHOP
no,
grant.
it might be the IHOP grant that they're looking at.
I think all the municipalities, from what they were talking about, the IHOP
Right.
grant, they're all looking at it for their different
I've
strategies.
seen that come across Facebook, so. Other than that, I have some other meetings scheduled up, but we'll get into that later. That's it.
All right, Commissioner Copenhaver.
I don't have much to report from this week. We had not many meetings or anything. Got a bunch more this week, but not much from last week, other than just phone calls from constituents around the county and discussions on the road when I met people on the road, so.
Okay. All right, well, for me, obviously, working with our administrator and finance, we're still working through our budget process. Spent most of the day, Wednesday, Thursday on that. Taking care of that, I did have a NACO transportation meeting also in there. Everybody's just kind of waiting for this new legislative session to get started to see how the remaining of the IIJ funds are going to be distributed, specifically throughout the nation. Had a lot of phone calls over these subdivisions that were coming up. and particularly how it relates to the land use code. We had a public comment just a minute ago as how it relates to the land use code. And, you know, I remember 2 years ago, we wanted to combine and put the density closer to the cities so that we would stop this type of sprawl, if you want to say that, in the counties. But the land use code allows it. And I can tell you that we were skinned by wanting to move those to 1 acre lots within that 3-mile perimeter of the cities to create the density closer to the cities, to keep the open space open, and people did not want that at all. They were adamantly opposed to it. They wanted to keep the big lots, the 3-acre lots, and they didn't want any restrictions in the land use code at all. So the land use code is developed to protect both owners of every property, and there is still a right that a person has to do with their property as long as it meets and is compliant with the land use code. But I definitely hear concerns, and I'm empathetic to those concerns. But we also have to look at the land use code and move it forward as it is written today. That was the one thing. The other one I wanted to address, and I'll do that here in a minute, but I wanted to talk about our meeting that we had yesterday, our workshop. We had a selection of a larger machine that we chose to go forward with for our 2020 purchase. And my question is, did we need to approve that today? That was discussed yesterday. We can't make decisions on Monday, but we have to make them on Tuesdays. It's not on the agenda, but we did talk about our landfill compost turner selection. So he did need approval for that to move that forward, and that was in the amount of the 2020 machine with 50 hours on it.
We did address it yesterday. I think that we can probably take it up under unfinished business today.
Okay. Well, then I'd like to, within my report, move that up to unfinished business because we did have that discussion yesterday. So the discussion that we had yesterday, he had 3 different proposals for us. One was a smaller machine at the amount of $414,100. And then the larger machine, which was actually a little bit bigger than what we needed. It's a used machine. It's a 2020 model, but the amount was $465,000. But it'll do more than what our capabilities that he needs at this present time. So, you guys have any further discussion on that?
No.
Okay, what's your pleasure?
You want to? You want me to? I'll do it. I so move we approve the purchase of the landfill's compost turner as recommended by L. Jarman, our landfill manager.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the proposal to purchase the larger landfill compost turner. The larger machine, a 2020 model with 50 hours on it, and the amount of $465,000. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The turf replacement program was also discussed. An Annex 3 project was discussed by our assessor and our clerk. They will bring us a proposal back with some actual drawings and some what the cost of the project will be before we even talk about that further. We also discussed which I think we said we would make a decision on also today, a letter of intent for the Regional Middle Mile Broadband Infrastructure Initiative. That was presented yesterday by Mr. Powers and Mr. McLean. And we obviously can't make decisions on Monday, but we can make a decision today on that letter of support and that we would be engaged in that activity. So again, we'll move that up to unfinished business. And gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
I would so move we sign the letter of intent for the Region 9 Middle Mile Broadband Project.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to sign a letter of support and send it to Herbert C. Hoover, send it to the Herbert C. Hoover Building as it relates to the Region 9 Middle Mile Broadband Project. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, obviously, we discussed the Road 23 closure we've dealt with today, the second floor, which is now the first floor, security door, and the esoteric discussion that we had on our workshop agenda yesterday. I then attended the Dolores Town Hall meeting last night. One of the big discussions that they are having right now is they are looking at purchasing for a proposed new town hall location, and I finally left at 9:30 last night, and I think they got done about 10:30, so I don't know where that actually ended up. I know that they were trying to move some funding around to see if they had enough money, and I don't know, but more to follow on that. They had a huge discussion from Joe Becker, who gave an update on the Galloping Goose of how they're rebuilding it, putting it all back together so that it actually can get its minimum of 1,000 hours out on the rails between Cumbres, Toltec, the narrow gauge over Durango, and then here. And those are the big highlights. They are looking at updating their land use code in their ordinance, and I think that was set for their first reading. I will be going to the water board meeting tonight with our fairgrounds manager and our buildings maintenance manager to discuss the suppression line for the fairgrounds and whether or not we will have to pay for that tap. And with that, that is all that I have, and I think that we have finished up everything that we needed to finish under unfinished business from our workshop. I did want to address one other public comment, though, and I did notice this also, that the public comment session was moved. I'm not sure why it was moved, but was there a reason for that?
I believe that's been that way since I was hired. Was moved to the bottom for some reason, and I'll have to find out why.
Because it's typically, I'm looking at, I mean, I would agree with the public comment. We typically have it right after we finish the planning. So if there was no reason, I mean, I don't know that we discussed a reason for moving it, but we typically put it in prior to going into any of our county operations. So I'm not sure why. I did notice that this morning, but I think we can keep that back in its same place. There's no reason to move it. Okay. And then the other one that was asked is fees at the annex, and I think we've always had fees at the annex unless I'm incorrect.
No, we've had fees.
So.
Yeah, I believe we talked about that.
Suspend fees every now and then for certain groups, but.
Correct. It's been
At
that.
request, so
Yeah.
there have always been fees. So with that, I think we've addressed everything, gentlemen. Is there anything else to bring before the board? Okay.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We adjourn this September 13th meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.